Hello and welcome back to another studio series video with myself, Dan Snyder, and Jim Linnell, Master Craftsman. So today we are going to continue our series on Japanese leather artists and just their influence on the just the leather crafting world as a whole. So really excited to learn about the next two that we're going to be talking about. So Jim, who are we talking about now?
Okay. Well, again, great to be back here. I really enjoy sharing these things. Anyone that's ever been to my studio, Elk Track Studio, sees my walls are just lined with all kinds of art and stuff like that. Well, some of this is stuff I've collected from literally from all over the world, and that's what we're sharing here tonight. The one that I want to show you first is one of our more recent Al Stohlman Award winners. His name is Honghao Cai, and I believe that's how his name is said. So
it's spelled C-A-I. If you want to look it
it's
up.
C-A-I, and yeah, if I goofed it up, it's that's on me. But anyway, that's the piece that I have hanging here. Very proud to have that piece here because, well, by the way, this is Elk Track Studio, right? So
Yeah.
it's an appropriate piece of leather work that you find hanging here. And how that came about, he opened up a studio, and I believe his studio is now in Japan. I think he might be Chinese by birth, but he opened up a gallery or is in the process still, I think, of getting it up and running in Japan, I think. Anyway, he wanted a piece of my work to put in there, and so I sent him pictures of two or three things, and he wanted to know, how much. I said, I want a horse trade. I'd like to have a piece of your work because I didn't have any. Last time I counted, I have something like the leather work of 32 of the Al Stohlman Award winners here at Elk Track Studio, and I didn't have his, so I made a point to weasel one out of him. And he did, obviously, absolutely fantastic work. And this is very much the Oriental style. This is, you can see that in the way the coloration is done. You can see that in the way the vagueness of the background and so forth. This piece here that you're looking at, I think, is 3 layers, if I were to guess. The log is obviously a separate piece of leather. The mat that goes around that is a separate piece of leather, and then the elk and the background is yet a third piece of leather. So I think you're looking at 3 layers of leather there to make this piece. And the elk is embossed. It's stretched out. There's a mold underneath. And that's one of the things. Honghao won the Al Stohlman Award, I believe it was in 2019. And probably one of the more obvious recipients because he was improvising and innovating like the first time I ever knew of him. He was doing some just incredibly small stuff with incredible detail. And once again, being the guy at the leather debut up in Sheridan that has to judge a lot of the pictures, I got to look at Honghao's work very, very closely and examine it very, very closely. And it's just exquisitely done. And and one of the things that I think he does, and is I think he actually builds molds under which that's underneath there, and then he molds the leather over those molds. I've seen him show illustrations of that online, and I think that's how he does. I don't know if that's how this one was done, but I know that that's how he does his work. And his coloration, his attention to detail is incredible. When he was here, and he's been here to my studio, he and his whole family. In fact, there's a whole bunch of them came and stopped by. They wanted to visit Elk Track Studio on their way back home. It would have been the year he won the Stohlman Award, I think. Maybe it was the year before. Anyway, they stopped by here and looked around and so forth. And he had just taught a class up in Sheridan, and he was using some modeling spoons that were just different than what anybody else had. And so I said, where do you get those? He says, oh, I make those, I said, well, do you have some extras? And yeah, guess what? I happen to have a pair of his modeling spoons here. They are exquisitely made. They are just precise out the wazoo. That's a technical term, but you can see how fine the ends of that is.
Yeah.
It's just that's a spoon on the end of that one. This one here's a little more of a blade type thing. But when you look at the tools that he uses, that he makes for himself, you can see maybe how he's able to get the kind of detail in pieces like you were looking at, um,
Mhm.
as detailed as they are. But very proud to have these. And there are some times where I'm getting into some smaller details where I've reached over there and used those. They are just
Yeah.
wonderful, and
I
I'm very
noticed
thankful to have those.
that would be a really cool thing to have, and you can really tell that when he did those, I guess the water there and then the trees.
Yeah, all of
Yeah,
that
that,
contour,
that,
I think,
that
was done with a modeling spoon.
yeah, and the just depth of field in this. I mean, it looks like it's not a very big piece, but the depth of field in this is just exquisite. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't.
it's probably what? It's probably a 8 by 8, maybe 10 by 10 piece
Yeah,
altogether, inside the frame. I'm guessing. Yeah, there you go. There's the signature. You can read that, right?
yeah. It says Honghao Cai.
Yeah, right there. So I have
So,
another.
well,
Uh, uh, he has influenced the leatherworking world a lot, and he one of the things I think makes him just such an obvious recipient of the Stohlman Award is his dedication to teaching the craft. I know
yeah.
that he teaches a lot of classes. I mean, a lot. He's got
Wow.
like a regular school and studio going on over there
Wow.
on a
Okay.
regular basis. I'm constantly seeing stuff that he's doing. I'd love to go sit underneath him and learn, from him. But
Yeah.
so he, his dedication to teaching, his dedication to innovation, the quality of his work, all of that. I mean, he's exactly the kind of person you would want to hold up as an example of, hey, here's what we'd like to see other leather workers aspire to. I
Yeah.
think he's just a great example.
His coloration on those. I mean, that's probably like some of the best. I mean, if I were to look at this and didn't know it was leather, I would say that's a very, very great painting.
And I
I mean,
don't know that he has, I don't know what he used for tools. I don't know. He probably didn't use any dyes or finishes that you sell at Springfield Leather.
probably
He's
not. Yeah.
he's making do with what's available there. And yes, there are some great products available there. It's just stuff that we don't use. So
Yeah.
he's making do with what he's got. So,
That's cool.
but
Well,
we haven't.
I'm sure we'll talk more about him in later episodes.
I'm sure we will, because
But
he's someone that is going to be around for a while. So
okay.
I'd like to show you
So
another piece, and I forgot to bring this up. So I'm jumping the script just a little bit, but I wanted to show you this. This is a piece I have. I don't know who made it. I do know it came from Japan, and the reason I know that is this was something that Jane Hurst gave to me. She said, "Here, this should be in your studio as well." It's a deerskin pouch, and what's amazing about this is that this design that you see on there, this
yeah.
is actually somewhat tooled. It's somewhat embossed onto this piece of chrome tanned leather. It looks
Wow.
tooled. It feels tooled almost, but it's
Yeah.
in the leather, and it's something. I don't know how they did it, but it's just really a different piece of leatherwork, and it's just very high quality piece of work that's done here.
Sure.
So I forgot to show you that earlier. So
Okay.
forgive me for
Cool.
throwing that in there, but this
Hey,
also came from Japan. I do not know the maker of this, and like I said, all I know is that this belonged to Jane Hurst, and she wanted it to be part of the stuff out here at Elk Track Studio. So
well, maybe the magic of the internet will allow us to figure out who
hope
created
so.
that.
I've never seen anything else like it. Tooling
Wow.
on chrome tan leather. Come
Yeah,
on,
that's unheard of. I
what?
mean,
Yeah, where do they do that? Well, look at that,
yeah,
and it's magnificent. And
that is
obviously the
really neat.
coloration is there as well. But
Yeah.
I,
I,
yeah,
I
I
would love to know how they did that. That's
yeah.
pretty.
Well, it just cost you a trip somewhere, probably.
Sure.
So
All right.
anyway, now moving on to another one that was on the schedule. This lady right here, Michiko Matsuda. There she is when she visited Elk Track Studio. She is a Al Stohlman Award winner from in 2021.
Mhm.
And again, just another one that's just almost a no-brainer. I say that about her, how much she deserved this award. She she's done just amazing things, organizing schools over there, organizing a council, a craft council over there. She's done a lot to promote the craft in Japan, and she is one that has probably, well, oh gosh, I don't even know how to best describe it. She's not trying to copy Sheridan. She's not trying to do what other people here do. She has learned the techniques. She has learned. She's taken from me probably 2 or 3 classes that I can remember, maybe more over the years, just to see and learn how we do what we do. It's not that she didn't have artistic abilities and the ability to do stuff, but then she's went there and has adapted our techniques to Japanese art. She's using classic Japanese batik type things, and I could show you this book. A book came out on her life and on her work, and it's like a coffee table type work. Michiko Matsuda, and it's full of a lot. And we'll show you some pictures out of this book of some of the things she does. When I first saw some of her work, she brought like some of these vases like this to one of the leather shows I was doing. And I looked at it, I said, what in the world? I mean, there's no way that can't be all leather. And you know what? It is. They are just, they're incredible. And you can't find a seam or anything in them. They're magnificent. I was just baffled. We'll show some of these other photos here, some of her work that came from there. But she, there's the book. That's a vase. That is a freestanding vase on the cover there. That is tooled. All of that scroll work you see there is embossed, and so you have a thin layer of leather over the top of that design where it was done on the leather below it. You can kind of see how thick that is at the top of the vase, how thick the edge of it is there. And that's multi layers built up and shaped and formed to build that. But you look at the edge there. Can you see a seam in the edge? I mean,
no.
I mean, it's flawless, and that's typically how her work is. And she teaches this. She teaches us. Her students come to the International Federation of Leather Guild show now, and they win the prizes. I mean, her students are just walking in her footsteps and doing a great job.
She's doing this all on veg tan, correct? Or some?
Well, it's probably it is veg tan. I know I was working really hard to get her lined up to do a class here at Elk Track Studio. And she was going to do one of these vases here, which just I still want to make that happen one day, figure out how to do it. But about the time we were setting all that up, along came COVID, and that just kind of killed that whole idea. But she had a tool list or a materials list, and one of the things that, and maybe a lot of the folks watching this might not know what a leveling split is, but I'll bet you do, Dan. You know what leveling splits are? Leveling splits are at a tannery, like Herman Oak or anywhere else. When they take and split a hide down to a 5-6 ounce or 7-8 ounce or whatever, that piece of leather that comes off of the back of that is called the leveling split. And it can be irregular in weight, but sometimes they'll turn that into your split suedes and stuff like that. There's other things they do with it. Well, they do also make those available as the same veg tan that the top is done. And she's using that a lot in these projects, that type of thing. And that was one of the things when we were looking at having to do it. I was going to round up all the supplies, and I was having a bear of a time finding some tannery or somebody that carried that, because they all turned that into some other material, into some other use now.
Well, I know Springfield Leather, we sell a lot of our splits now, our heavy veg tan splits, because we have to calibrate the machine, and calibrate the machine to get a split. So that is something that we have all different sizes, all different weights.
If we can get that lined up again, I'll keep you in mind, because she would need those splits in a particular weight. So we would need to split those splits.
And when that class happens, I'm jumping in. I'm the first seat. I'm reserving it now because
it's amazing. It's amazing.
I want to see how that is just. And even if I never ever get to do one, just seeing the level of skill and technique that goes into this, I mean, that is truly a just a
Once
wonderful
again,
thing.
she's also just a humble lady. She is so dedicated to passing on her art. And you are looking at classic Japanese art there, that kind of
Uh,
floral and that kind of stuff that you see there. And maybe we can flip to some of the other pictures there.
okay.
But you'll see that her techniques, it's hard to put them into some American category of leatherwork. I mean, that ain't gonna fit into something that we do. That's another one of her vases. And that floral design, that grass look there, all of those are embossed. They all are raised out on that. Uh, but she just does amazing work. When you look at it, the coloring, the texturing, all of that is just meticulous. It's been an honor really to be called to be the judge of stuff like this, because I get to pick it up and examine it like nobody else ever gets to, and
Wow.
you get to look inside and look underneath and so forth. Most people be afraid to touch that, and
Yeah,
I
and even Gwen, she was like, "That's leather?" Like,
yeah,
she saw
yeah,
that.
that's leather.
And that's better than my dad.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And you know
Yeah,
what else?
you're not wrong.
That's a
Yes,
lady too. That isn't some old guy.
but she didn't.
Yep, she
Yeah, she
did.
didn't, but that's really amazing stuff, and,
So,
uh,
and I don't remember how many photos we have of some of her work there, but
I have a few
yeah,
more.
look at there's some more that give you an idea of that. But look at the rich colors that she also has in there. And again,
And the textures on there are the things that have been catching my eye
yeah,
is this amazing texture that, I mean, it's replicating the Japanese,
right.
are
You're looking at
very
an
similar
Oriental art
at the
styles here.
ceramics,
Hmm.
Japanese vases and plates and dinnerware and decorative stuff like that. I mean, that is one of the things that, for me, that I see, and I'm like, the Japanese are very good at that. But for her to be replicating those and taking inspiration from those and making it out of leather is just a whole nother thing.
When she first time I ever met her, she brought her stuff to one of the International Federation of Leather Guilds annual meetings, and she was immediately best of show. I mean, her stuff, like from the very first time I ever saw it, was already just captivating everyone, because she's just not following the rules that we here in this country think you got to follow. You go pick up an instruction book from Tandy or anywhere else. There's rules about how you got to do leather work. Well, guess
Yeah,
what? Thank goodness she doesn't follow the rules, and is honoring her culture by the kind of
right.
work that she does. And I think that's what I aspire to see folks do when I pass on my knowledge in all the classes that I do. What I don't want is, I don't want them to do Jim Linnell's leatherwork. I want them to take my knowledge and now add it to them and create their own things. She
You
has
know,
she has done that.
and that's a very interesting point. There are, steps and rules and things that have been laid out there. But also, when you're learning from somebody, you try to imitate what they're doing because they've been doing it for so long, that you're almost in a kind of under context sort of way. You're implementing their rules that they have showed you just by teaching you,
Right.
and by being able to kind of just break outside those bounds.
That's right.
It can be a very daunting thing, but I think it's one of those things that if you know exactly what you have in mind, the sky's the limit.
Well, I think that's one of the challenges. Anybody that wants to teach this craft is that, yes, give people the guidance they need, but do not put them in a box and say, you got to do it the way I do it.
Right.
Uh, our job as a teacher, I've said this in every class I think I've ever done, is that when people walk away from one of my classes that I teach, I don't want them walking away saying, oh my gosh, Jim Linnell is so good. He does stuff that nobody else can do. That is not what I want them to say. I want them to walk away from a class saying, you know, I can do this. This is something I think I can do. I can do this. Then I've done my job as a teacher.
Exactly, and that is a very good point. That instilling that confidence in students is so key, because I remember when I first started leatherworking, I made this throw pillow. It was a patchwork throw pillow, and this thing, I still have it, and it was terrible, and I knew it was terrible, but I didn't have anyone showing me until I went to Springfield Leather, and I walked in and I said, I know this is terrible. How can I make it better? And they, you know, Jeff Tando, you know, he passed away last year. He was a longtime employee at Springfield Leather, but he sat there and he said, "Come with me," and he showed me around, and he instilled that confidence in me. And you know, that is a very important thing about learning that. And then especially when you get that confidence built up, then you're like, you know what? I can do this. I can make this leather vase, and I'm going to do it by my rules.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I don't know what other pictures we have there. This book is full of her art, and she does more than just vases. I think those are some of the more spectacular things in there. But she has wall art and such, and all of it is done, and by sharing the international. In an international way, the flavor of Japanese art, it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you zoom out there, you'll see that the text in there is written, I think, in 3 languages. It's not just in Japanese. I think that's Chinese, Japanese, and of course American or English.
Okay.
But yeah, so she's passing her stuff around the world.
Let's go back to that last one. There was something in that text that I saw that kind of caught my eye. She said, sometimes I wonder if it's a good thing to be convenient when I think about what I've achieved. And that just, I mean, that's just humbleness right there. It's like, you know, I wonder if it's good to take the shortcut sometimes. And
she is just the sweetest gal. And a very dear friend. She gave me the honor of asking me to write a foreword for that book, and I was honored to do that. She's someone I would go sit in her class any chance I could to learn from her.
Wow, that's very high praise coming from you, Jim. All right, let's see that other vase we have there.
Yeah, that other one. Yeah, she captured.
Very cool vase.
It is
again captured. A floral design right there in the design of the vase. And
are those actual stones in there?
I don't remember on that one. I don't think so. They're cutouts, and I think there's something reflective underneath there, but I don't know that I've seen this one. Again, this year we stole a picture out of her book just to give people an idea what she does. And again, she when we say leatherwork to folks, when people come into my shop, which is why they're kind of stunned sometimes, they see all this stuff hanging on the wall, but people will come into my shop thinking leatherwork. Oh yeah, that means like belts and saddles and bridles and stuff that you use like that. They don't ever think of it as an art form or an art medium that they can do things like that. And even then, when they do, they think you have to carve it with the tools that you buy from Springfield Leather. Well, no, you don't. I mean, look at this stuff. It's just amazing what can be done when you are not constrained in your imagination.
Right. I would bet good money that the tools and the materials that it took to craft this, you could buy at any leather retailer. I mean, for the most part, you can find something that will work at least.
Probably. I don't know. Again, I somewhere I have a list of what she was wanting me to have for this class that we were going to do here, and there was certainly nothing in the world of tools that was odd or unique or anything like that. Just finding the different kinds of leather and so forth. It is amazing what people can do when they have no other choice but to use what they have.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That is.
And then I don't know. Is there any other pictures? I don't remember what else I sent. Oh
I think
yeah, there's another one. Look at
more.
that.
Yeah,
Look at that. Isn't that amazing?
that's absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that is all leather. Can you believe that? I mean, look at the graceful design that goes through there. I mean, that's part of it. Most people would look at the design work on there and say, "Wow, that's really cool." But wait, no, the whole stinking thing is made out of leather.
And and I would say that the with all of the new like technology has played a role into crafting something so beautiful as this. And she mentioned something about under in that text about using a laser to cut it out sometimes. And she was wondering, am I cheating by doing that? But I think it's quite the opposite. I think it's incorporating this new style, like we've talked about before, this new style with a very, very old, not ancient almost, um, leather crafting. I mean, it's been around since
One of the things I encourage students a lot. People come into my shop and they see that I got a lot of tools. I mean, I got a whole lot of tools, and that they will want to know, do I need to buy this tool or that tool? And I have some expensive tools, no question about it. But what I tell them, I said, when you get all done with a piece of leatherwork and you're showing it to someone, showing them what you created, you know what they're not going to ask? They're not going to ask, what tool did you use to do that? They're not going to ask whose name was on that tool or where did you buy that tool? No,
Yeah.
people are going to judge you on the work you produce with it. And if you're doing that with a sharpened pocket knife and you can create that kind of work, people are still going to be amazed at the work, not at the tools you use to do it. So don't get hung up on tools. And I think you're right. I think this is a great example of that. I think she probably is using tools that we would probably say, oh gosh, no, that one doesn't say whose ever big name you want to say on that tool. She's just using what she's got.
And that is the beauty of leatherwork. That it is. I've talked to crafters and master toolers, saddle makers, and the only thing that they have that they didn't make was their swivel knife. You know, and so and even the blade. I met a saddle maker that he makes his own swivel knife blades, and that's just what he needed to do to make something work. So I think that's a very that's just another amazing thing about the craft because when you're cutting when you're anything else, there's a lot of tools that are involved when it comes to needing to do a specific thing. So if you need to cut a 2x4 in half, you use a saw, right? But if you need a router to put some trim up, you need a router. And like, I kind of lost my train of thought where I was going with that, but
well, you use what you got that gets
Yeah.
the job done, and that's really an important thing for anybody to learn. I don't know if we have any more pictures here, but in closing, I would say that one of the things that I think every leather worker should realize is that if you're using a lack of tools or anything as an excuse, that is just a really lame excuse. Because the people whose work I have on display here, they were making do with stuff that is far less quality than what we have available to us today. They didn't have if they had a piece of leather that had a big old scar in it or whatever, well, guess what? They had to use that because that's all they had. And getting another one UPS'd out to them or whatever, if they wanted, it wasn't a choice. If they wanted a tool to do a particular kind of a design, well, they didn't have Amazon. Or they didn't have a Springfield leather. You had to figure out, how am I going to do what I want to do? And I think
Definitely.
they say that necessity is the mother of invention. And the fact that we have so much readily available to us has maybe cheated us from having to use our imagination. And I think that's something that we need to encourage leatherworkers to not be afraid to do, is to make do.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And man, those were some incredible pieces. And if you ever get that class going, please let us know.
Will do.
Invite out because I have a reserved seat, right, Jim?
Awesome. Well, very
All right.
good.
Well, that was a great review. This is Michiko was the last one of the Japanese artists, but I know that there's a plethora of artists skilled in their own right in Japan now, and even a lot of Asia. They're doing some wonderful things with the craft, and I thank you for showing us some of the ones that and that you have seen their work have their work or seen their work in person. So I've learned a lot, and every time we talk, I always gain another appreciation for just how much you can do with leather. And like we said, your imagination is limitless when it comes to it.
Yep.
So,
Well, till next time.
all right, Jim. Thanks a lot. I'll see you later.